Nick Friedman, welcome to the podcast. Nick Friedman is co-founder of College H.U.N.K.S Hauling Junk and Moving, the award-winning iconic franchise empire that started in a college with a beat-up cargo van and a big vision, now doing over $300 million in sales. So Nick, I have so many questions for you, but it's honestly amazing just to see how you can turn a college pursuit into a $300 million um, franchise and company. So first and foremost, what got you started? Tell me the college story.
Yeah. Home for summer vacation, summer before my senior year of college. My best friend from high school and we were just kind of sitting around the house, and his mom actually had a beat up cargo van from her furniture store. And she said, "Why don't you guys go use the van? You can move people's furniture, haul people's junk away." And then she looked us up and down, and it was like, she said, "You could be the college hunks who haul junk." And we just kind of laughed about it at first, but decided we would put that on flyer. Figured it was a catchy way to make the phone ring, and went back to school our senior year. Actually, my business partner went to University of Miami down near where you are, and wrote a business plan, which won an entrepreneurship competition. So it gave us a little more confidence in the idea. Most college kids would probably quit and get a real job after college, which we tried briefly and said, you know what, let's make this a year-round venture. And of course, there was a lot of doubters. People were like, "You're going to quit your jobs to do what? Haul junk? And you're going to call it college hunks? Are you throwing away your degree to start a junk and moving business? You think that's a great idea?" And, I call it a 20-year overnight success. This is really what it's become at this point. It's been a long journey. We started down the path of franchising a few years later, and, here we are.
So I kind of want to take a step back here. What were you studying in college? Mind me asking?
Yeah, so I studied economics and finance. I was at a liberal arts college, so it was kind of the closest thing to business that I could get as a degree. My business partner, he studied business management and marketing. I would say a lot of what we learned in college was very theoretical. I mean, I was brought up
Right.
on the more traditional career path. You work hard, you get good grades, and you get a job. And I think the concept of starting a business or entrepreneurship was not as common, 20 years ago as it is today.
Well, yeah, I mean, that business model makes sense for your parents because that is what worked in, 20, 30, 40 years ago. You'd hone in on a very specific area of expertise. You'd invest 3, 4 years into it, and then you'd find security in, the economy.
That's right.
But our landscape is changing so fast that, higher risk, higher reward endeavors seem to be appealing to many people. Now, did you ever second guess yourself? Like, hey, I'm picking up junk. I have a college degree and I'm just going around picking up junk. And like, before I talk about how you would transition from picking up junk to running a franchise, which is an incredible leap, I kind of want to talk about when you were in college. So, I mean, were you making good money starting out that you were like, hey, I can see myself doing this for a long time?
So I would say the ego got in the way a little bit at the beginning because it's like, am I too good to be picking up junk or moving people's furniture? But very quickly it was, I don't think anybody's dreams about growing up to move furniture or haul junk when they grow up. But it was like I enjoyed the sort of creative process. The brand was fun and catchy. People had an instant reaction when we would talk about it to them. It was a conversation starter, kind of a pattern interrupt, as I call it. And we started making money because we didn't have any overhead. So we borrowed
Right.
my friend's mom's cargo van. We were still living at home. So, the first time we went to a job, we didn't know how to price it. We looked at the couch and they wanted us to haul it away for them. And we were like, I don't know, $100. And they took out their wallet and gave us $100. And, we were broke college kids at the time. So we're like, whoa, we're rich.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the instant feedback that told us it was something that could work.
Yeah. It's like when you're coming out of college, you're hungry. You think, the world's at your fingertips. You're going to work at a bank and make a ton of money, investment banker or whatever it is you're heading down, but something prestigious. And you probably put your ego aside for a moment and then you felt something. You're like, hey, this is pretty easy. This is quick. This is cash like, I'm making just quick $100, easier $100 than doing other stuff. And that only
Right.
made sense for you to double down in that direction. So explain to me at the moment where you realize, yeah, like that, was there like an epiphany or an aha moment? You're like, hey, this is something I can see, this is something I can really, really build on. This isn't just like something you're doing in your basement to make a few bucks and get by.
I think that honestly, the turning point for us was one of our mentors early on recommended to us a book called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber. And it's really kind of simple business concept, but it was basically like most entrepreneurs fail because they spend all their time working in the business, not on the business. And so it created, a
Right.
framework for trying to create systems and processes so that you could grow the business. And it's, talks about having a lofty vision for the future, a set of values, and then systems that you can operate and hire people to help develop those systems. And so when we read the book, it felt like it was written about us because we were doing all the work ourselves at the beginning, driving the trucks, hauling the junk, answering the phone, or I should say the truck, not trucks. I always tell the story. We went and we bought a 1-800 number and put it on the back of our truck to make ourselves look bigger. It was still routed to our cell phone. So anytime somebody would call the 800 number to complain about driving, we'd be in the driver's seat answering the phone, be like, "Oh yeah, we'll fire those guys back to the office." Of like 3 or 4 times. And so when I read that book, it was like the real big light bulb moment for me, kind of aha, where if we're ever going to have another truck, let alone another location, we got to start documenting how we do everything kind of on a day by day basis. So we just started creating checklists and, how do we load the truck? How do we drive the truck? How do we answer the phone? How do we greet the clients? And I think that was just sort of the foundational baseline of creating a replicatable process. The book also talks about franchising, so that kind of planted the seed in our mind of like perhaps to grow this could be a path for us. And so yeah, I think it was kind of an evolution. And I'll also say I never really was passionate about reading in college or even in high school. And once we started the business, I actually started picking up business books and going to conferences and things like that because it
Yeah.
was like I could apply what I was reading or what I was hearing immediately into something that I was doing. And so it had a very tangible activity that I could try to, implement. And so I think brushing up and becoming kind of students of entrepreneurship very quickly helped light the path as well.
Yeah. I mean, Nick, the irony here is at some point you probably did appreciate your college discipline because, normally, the best way to start a company is to really understand the operations on the ground. And you literally doing the work starting out, picking up the junk, doing the actual day-to-day stuff, pretending you had a secretary while you're
Yeah.
the guy driving, you're the guy doing everything. You got to fake it till you make it to some extent. But at some point, you probably realize, hey, now it's time to grow this because the mechanics that you've carved out a one-person team to becoming a 2 and 3 person team you start to realize, hey, this is more of an economics process, and I got to start thinking bigger picture. I got to start thinking like an accountant. How do I register a company? How do I save money? Franchise, taxes, states, just learning how to be an effective leader. So I'm sure your college degree or your mindset as an academic or as a business person stepped in at some point.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah. So
Yeah.
talk to me about that transition because that
Yeah.
scaling factor is a difficult one. From
Yeah.
running a 1 person team to running a 10 person team has a vastly different set of challenges.
Yes. So, the things that I would say I didn't necessarily learn in school would have been some of the intangible leadership elements, sales and networking and developing a marketing plan because that wasn't one of the classes that I took. But the theoretical stuff that we did learn in school, supply and demand, spreadsheet work, analytics, for sure I was able to bring some of those tools. And then honestly, just kind of general problem solving, time blocking, you know, planning out the week, things like that were things that you had to learn at school if you were to, function or at least graduate with some decent record. Because I didn't contemplate starting a business until after we graduated, making it a year-round venture. And so I think, yeah, it was a combination of sort of those problem solving, uh, analytical, theoretical tools that I learned in school combined with kind of the real world, as you mentioned, boots on the ground, just kind of learning it as we go, building the plane in flight, whatever analogy you want to use, where we were just trying to learn, like, okay, how are we going to build this thing? And how are we going to get a second truck? And okay, we're going to move out of our parents' house and get an office, because our parents are tired of the truck being parked in their driveway. And so that was kind of the evolution of it in those early days was, just kind of, that early grind, I guess, if you call it that, of just getting the jobs on the calendar, getting them done by any means as possible, and then trying to figure out, okay, now let's try and see if we can hire somebody to answer the phone, or let's see if we can hire somebody to, help us lift the other end of the couch, so we're not the ones doing it 7 days a week, and developing those kind of muscles that we hadn't ever really had experience doing.
What was your biggest challenge transitioning from doing the whole thing yourself to start turning into a real company?
I think recognizing sort of there's stages of delegation and empowerment when you hire those first couple employees. Uh, when we first hired an employee, we didn't know how to train, how to coach. Really didn't know how to select employees. We were kind of just taking bodies. Anybody that applied, we were like, sure, you'll do. And so we would put people out, kind of, using the sports analogy, we'd like put them out on the field without any real preparation or practice or training on or expectations of what we were asking them to do when they came back. So it was, no surprise after the first time we sent somebody out with the truck and a job sheet, they came back and I think they did like one job and they were gone like 12 hours. And we're like, what'd you do all day? It's like, okay, wait a minute. We got to create some systems and processes for
Yeah.
how they go out and do the job. So I think that was the biggest aha, for us and steepest learning curve was realizing, okay, we need a kind of an avatar of the ideal employee that would be a great fit. And then we need a
Right.
training process for how to teach somebody. And it's not a set it, forget it
You
proposition.
probably made the assumption that people cared about your work as much as you did, and they did it as
Yeah.
passionately as you. And you're like, hey, part of this success to how I got here was because I did work with heart and I went the extra mile. And you're like, "No, I can't expect everyone to do that as well."
Yeah.
And that's where you start to like fine tune those sales skills and you start finding the right people. That is challenging. Hiring is one of the most stressful parts of a growing company.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think some people, I admire a lot of my friends in business. I admire just because they seem to be so natural at it. Like they're just like really good at talent selection and being very discerning
well,
as to,
that comes from a deep intuition of doing it
yeah.
so many times.
That's right. That's right. And I think for us, it was kind of out of convenience. Like we were tired of hauling the junk ourselves. So we were like, we just got to get somebody else to do it. But we didn't really have the tools or the frameworks to be able to like discern effectively if these individuals are going to be a good fit or even, how to enroll them in any sort of company culture where they, have a passion, even remotely close to the one that we had when we were first getting started.
When did you look back and feel proud of yourself? I know it's a weird question, but I'm genuinely curious. Like, was there a moment where you kind of clocked in that first $1 million of revenue and you're like, whoa, that's pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment that you felt that?
I think the first time that I really had like a pinch myself goosebumps moment was when we started franchising. We probably only had like 4 or 5 franchisees. So, we kind of had gotten over the hump, the steep learning curve of how to set our business up to franchise, how to actually sell and train a new franchisee, although we were, again, figuring that out on the fly. But we hosted a annual franchise conference for the first time. And there might have only been, a dozen or maybe 2 dozen people there between a couple vendors, our small handful of franchisees and our small handful of employees, and maybe, a few franchisees brought their spouses or something. But just kind of having this like gathering of a handful of people that were all sort of believing in the vision and seeing the potential of what this brand could ultimately one day create. That was a pretty surreal moment. And then
Mhm.
more recently, we celebrated our 20-year anniversary, and we had over 500 people at our franchise conference.
That's
We
crazy.
actually hired Ludacris to come to a private concert. We had Ric Flair on stage doing a big crowd pump up speech. And so, that was obviously a whole nother feeling like we had arrived, like, wow, like we're way on the other end of this, canyon that we just crossed. And, Ludacris was kind of meaningful because we used to listen to his music when we first started the business and we were in the truck and he was, kind of just coming out back, in the early 2000s as a star, performer. And of course, his music's still kind of relevant and timeless today. So that was kind of a really cool full arc moment for us.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. If today you probably wake up and it's just another day in your life, you're not so impressed, it's a milestone you've reached in life. But if you were to tell the college version of yourself with $100, not even $100 to his name, that he'd be running a $300 million franchise in 2 decades from now, I'm sure he wouldn't believe you. And here you are living it today and completely unimpressed. What do you think that tells you about the human nature to like have these dreams and aspirations and then the version of ourselves a few years later is completely unimpressed by those milestones? And what you wish you had, you might have it in 5, 10 years from now, and you'll be completely unimpressed as well. Yet you'll put so much stress and anxiety into reaching that milestone. I wonder if you ever to like look at the bigger picture, how do you reconcile those
Yeah,
differences?
it's a challenging balance. There's no doubt about it. It's a great sort of philosophical existential question from an entrepreneurial perspective. You're right. The goalpost always keeps moving, no matter what sort
Yeah.
of milestone or objective you achieve.
And happiness is always just out of reach. Like, you always think,
Just out of
if I
reach.
had that, it'd be perfect."
Yeah, and there's actually a book that I read recently that really was pretty impactful and talks exactly about what you just described. It was called The Gap versus the Gain, I think by Dan Sullivan. And basically the idea is that, all of us as humans, especially entrepreneurs, spend so much time living in this scarcity gap where, the ideal is perpetually
Yeah.
out of reach no matter what level you attain. You're never fulfilled or certainly never content. You may be, maybe happy. And that feeling of scarcity leaves us a feeling of emptiness where you're always kind of aspiring for something else that's just over the horizon that you never achieve, or you achieve it but then the horizon keeps moving. And so the idea is to shift that framework into what he calls the gain, meaning living in the recognizing where you started to where you are today, kind of the way you phrased the question, and being able to sort of bask in that gratitude of abundance. And then it puts you in a mindset shift where you can feel fulfilled, feel, accomplished and successful. And then anything else that you look to achieve is really about what I view or describe as potential maximization. So it's like, I want to continue to become a better leader, better version of myself, better father, husband, leader in my organization. I also want to see how far this brand can become as a platform that can impact communities through franchising, through business ownership, through employment. And so that is sort of more, I think, the shift that I've made more recently because, as I entered my 40s and been in business 20 years and been surrounded by entrepreneurs that, kind of keep achieving, but never seem like they're ever fulfilled. So to get back to your question as to what advice I'd give my, 20-year-old self, it's really, and it's maybe cliche to say enjoy the journey, but be patient for the results, continue to have the urgency of effort, but just sort of appreciate those wins, those milestone wins along the way, because it's like you already have enough. We already, we live in the greatest
Right.
country in the world. We're born with enough. Like there's other people that have more. There's certainly always going to be a lot of people that have less. So if you're always in this sort of scarcity mindset, you're never going to be able to have I guess, a level of peace that
Right.
allows you to enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect segue into my next point because, listen, I'm still relatively young, but I imagine in life, once you find success in your own life and you make all the money you wish you could have made, you start to realize that some of the things that matter the most in life are the things that kind of don't matter at all. Like just doing nothing with a family member, spending time with your parents, just giving them the extra mile and helping people who need it. So I know that you care a lot about helping other people and giving back. And I wonder if that mindset and that perspective kind of blossomed over time, maybe conscious or subconscious. But when you realize that, hey, you've had time to take care of yourself, you've had time to do the things that you always thought would make you happy, and you start to realize, hey, maybe there's things that really make me feel happy in life is not necessarily making millions and millions of dollars, but helping other people who need it as well. I wonder if you agree with that perspective, and also how do you incorporate that within your current business model?
Yeah, say, I think when I was younger, I definitely struggled with ego and just honestly, if I'm being honest, greed. Like it's like I was money motivated, I was ego driven, but those were oftentimes very, I would say, empty pursuits that never, kind of had this like bottomless pit that never could feel, fulfilled or whole or at peace. And so I think the other part of me did and is very and was very continues to be very passionate about leadership development, mentoring, coaching, and impacting community. And so when we made the shift to being really what I would say a purpose driven, values based organization as opposed to a money motivated organization, I think something shifted in me as a founder, but it also shifted in the organization where all of a sudden we really started attracting really talented people that were excited about the mission. We started attracting incredible franchise owners, because the business is hard, whether you're a franchise owner or an employee in the business, especially at the front line, it's not an easy job moving heavy furniture all day or hauling junk away, or
Yeah.
in our case, supporting franchise owners who are hiring people to do that. It's there's never ending stresses that arrive. And there's the wind isn't always at your back economically either. Even when we started franchising, it was like the 2008 2009 housing crisis, so it probably wasn't the
Oh,
ideal
wow.
time to be starting to franchise a home service company. I think it made better entrepreneurs out of us. It made us more resilient, more gritty. But I think if we didn't have kind of a North Star of making an impact and having a set of values that we believed in, we probably would have given up much more easily, because if it was just about the money, we would have abandoned ship probably a long time ago. And so I think those are some of the lessons that I've learned. And I do think it's always an ongoing struggle because you have to be intentional about it. It's easy to get uh, distracted by social media or the flashy stuff that you see on TV or amongst your peers, and want to try to keep up with the Joneses and things like that. I mean, I think those human tendencies never go away completely. And there's always the profit motive of entrepreneurship, so that's part of the scoreboard. But we kind of shifted to say, like, if there's no margin, there's no mission. So we've got to have profit to be able to make an impact. And we started doing things. We started a 2-for-1 giving program with U.S. Hunger, where we donate 2 meals for every completed job. We've donated over 5
That's
million
great.
meals since we started that program. During COVID, we started doing free moves for survivors of domestic violence, just because we kept hearing about the news articles of people kind of being stuck in place with their abusers. And, we didn't want the cost of moving to be something that
Mm,
kept them there. And so, being able to do things like that. More recently, we just signed up with Junior Achievement to create a whole leadership center here in Tampa for, middle school age kids. So being able to do things like that, using our platform as a conduit for those things, has been much more rewarding and fulfilling, I would say, as a founder, than just trying to put points on the scoreboard.
yeah, Nick, well said. I mean, people tend to have a cynical view of companies as there's nothing but greed and having self-interest. But the truth is, the wanting to help others and looking to build a company that generates revenue and find success, they're not mutually exclusive pursuits.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with caring about your own interests and then caring also about offering value to other people and caring also about helping companies. So it's inspiring and beautiful to hear how you speak and that you do both. And I know I read a little bit about you, and another thing you mentioned is that you guys 50% of your um, 50% of your franchise owners are veterans. So it sounds like you've kind of cultivated an ecosystem of just people doing amazing things and working with you. And how does that fit into like what we're discussing now? So is it coincidental that 15% of these people are veterans, or is it part of like your I don't know, the kind of people you attract, or is it the people you look for? Explain to me how that kind of panned out the way it did.
Yeah, well, I think it's all of the above. We're part of the International Franchise Association, and they have a vet fran program, where they create kind of a platform for veterans to look for life after service, and business ownership as one of those potential paths. And so we're very active in that program. We have discounts to incentivize veterans to consider our franchise opportunity. We also feel like there's a lot of transferable skill sets. Somebody who's run you know a platoon or whatever the case may be, in the armed services,
Of course.
or retired law enforcement. I mean, their stress levels are on a whole different level than anything that a franchise owner might experience in our business. And so, they're accustomed to working with young men, showing them a path, showing them a system, helping to develop
Yeah.
them, execute a game plan. And so I think there's a transferable skill set. There's also, as you said, it kind of fits with the ethos of our business model and of our brand, to be able to create a platform or an opportunity for veterans to have a piece of the American dream once they get out of serving the country in
Yeah.
the armed services. So it's worked out, I would say, kind of intentionally, but definitely manifested better than I could have imagined.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a common ground. It's a pretty fair assumption that people who were in the military, active duty, or whatnot have a certain discipline, moral compass, and just the ability to take on responsibility and deliver. So yeah, that all sounds pretty cool, and that honestly makes a whole lot of sense. Now, digging into the Nick on a personal level, do you do acting on the side? Is that am I
Yes. So the way I describe it is, a lot of entrepreneurs I know, actually, they'll train for a marathon or an Ironman or a mountain to climb as kind of a side quest or side venture. And I'm just happy enough to go to the gym for my athletic outlet. But we've done reality TV over the years. We were on episode 1 of Shark Tank. More
Oh,
recently,
awesome.
we were on Undercover Boss, and so I had a friend that was making scripted movies, and he approached me and asked, "Hey, you've done these unscripted reality shows. Would you ever consider being part of a scripted project?" And he showed me a script for a biopic about Jeff Bezos. It was called Bezos: The Beginning, and he asked if I would be interested in being involved as a both producer and or actor, and I was like, "Sure, why not both?" It's kind of a bucket list experience. So we did that a few years ago. It's available on all the streaming platforms. We're actually working on another movie right now about Elon Musk, where it kind of follows from where he sold PayPal to where he's launching Tesla, and so I would just kind of chalk that
Big.
up.
It's a big week for Tesla this week.
That's right, big time.
Probably the biggest week ever. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
I would chalk that up as kind of side venture slash stretching of the comfort zone. I preach that a lot at our organization, to kind of do things outside of your comfort zone to stretch your skill sets or your experiences, and so uh, making movies is kind of what that is for me. I wouldn't quit my day job just yet to move to Hollywood though.
And nor should you. Um, quick question here. So you have this college student, life is difficult, barely got a penny to his name, trying to just make his way and survive through college, and many people are in this situation. Uh, what advice would you give to them to be where you started and get to where you are today?
Oh man. Well, number one,
Yeah, it's
you're
not
only gonna
supposed to be an easy interview.
yeah, you're only gonna get more and more responsibility as you get older. So if you are gonna take a risk or try something new, I would try it. The younger that you are, the more sort of uh, length you have to recover from whatever may or may not work out.
Right.
So that would be the first piece, and then the other piece is, nothing happens overnight. Like, don't get enamored with the unicorn stocks that you hear about on the news, or you know these tech billionaires that seem like they just made it overnight, or even just the entrepreneurship gurus online or on social media that are touting these sort of quick quick fix paths. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
to be successful. I think, surrounding yourself with good people is important. I wish I had learned this at an earlier age. You do become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So kind of do a self-assessment of your inner circle, and are some of the people that you hang out with, are they people that make things happen, or are they kind of flaky individuals that may actually bring you down? And I don't think I realized that, until further along in my entrepreneurial endeavors, but I do think that's important, because proximity and being surrounded by people that have, like you said, a high moral compass, but also high aspirations and work ethic, all of that stuff can benefit somebody who's young and struggling and trying to figure out direction.
That's a great answer, Nick. Uh, how can people get in touch with you?
So probably the easiest way, I have a website, nickfriedman.com, Nick, Friedman. I'm also on all the social medias, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, X. Pretty easy to track down. The College H.U.N.K.S website's pretty self-explanatory. So if people are interested in franchising or need a mover or hauler, they can find us that way.
Nick, your story is honestly inspiring, and I appreciate you giving me your time and to share your story and hopefully provide insight and direction for people who are looking for it. So thank you again.
Awesome, man. Thanks for what you're doing as well. Appreciate the opportunity.